and welcome to Ahl Bayt TV, and we are with Discovering the Truth, weekly programs in association and collaboration with Sincere Communities. We are here to address Muslims and reverts from many years who will be discussing their journey to give us more learning so that we can have better relationships and address any challenges that is still existing, and hopefully to get that out of our communities, out of our habits, and have amazing guests. To join me today is Cordelia Ghaffar. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
And we also have with us today is Maulana Sayyid Reverts. Assalamu alaikum. How are you today?
Assalamu alaikum.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, to join me, especially Cordelia, all the way from the USA. Where exactly are you right now?
Washington, D.C.
Amazing. Okay, so that's really lovely that you're joining us from across the world. And I just want to remind the viewers watching everywhere that this is a live, interactive call-in show. So please do call in with any of your queries, questions, or comments. We would love to take your calls. I just want to quickly start with you as an introduction. Cordelia, you started this journey around about 20 or 15 years ago, right? It's a really long journey for you, and you've gone through many stages. The thing is, you did start off, and I remember us having this discussion, is that it was out of your own curiosity and not necessarily like most people that do come into Islam, where they actually had a sort of like a friendship group or a big environment around them to influence them. So that was really interesting. Could you talk me through a little bit about that before we go more into the conversation?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the beginning, I was in high school. I studied French, actually. My sister studied Arabic. She went to Egypt for the summer. And when she came back, she had some books about Islam. And she was saying, like, the family she stayed with, they were so nice and welcoming. And if she said something like, you have a beautiful dress or a beautiful abaya, they would give it to her. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds really different, you know? And so this was near my end of high school, and I was starting to question, religion a little bit. I guess that's the age, right? And so I was in school taking like theory of knowledge and reading Siddhartha and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, all these Eastern religions, like who knew about all this stuff? I grew up like in an Anglican church, because like for centuries, that's my family's background. Actually, my great grandfather was a priest. So anyway,
oh wow,
I guess, yeah, right. And then fast forward a little bit, I had a few, hardships in college, and my parents, I'm the youngest, and so my parents were up in age, and I left school to take care of them, and I eventually lost them when I was in my early 20s, and I really felt lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I truly dove into my spiritual journey, because I was like, no longer have parents. I need guidance. What will that guidance be? Mm-hmm. And I literally prostrated and was asking, God, please guide me the correct way to worship you, because otherwise I'm going to be lost. That was actually my prayer in prostration. And
wow.
It wasn't really related to anything I had read in those books. Like probably at that point, it had been about 7 years before. It was just like a normal, natural inclination. And so next thing you know, I had started back university studies again. I was working full time, and my classmates were from West Africa, and then they would invite me to their families' homes, and I would eat their delicious food. And I found out that they're Muslim too, and I was like, oh, this is a Muslim thing, like good food and nice people, And so they they were telling me little by little, of course, by the way they lived and, their traditions, that this is an Islamic way. And I was curious and wanted to read Quran and stuff like that. So, I just kept researching and finding out more and more and asking more questions. And I would say altogether it was probably about a 12-year journey before I actually became Muslim.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's truly phenomenal. That's like a life-changing, long sort of like discovery, I would say. And thank you for the introduction. And I just want to also add, it's so beautiful. I mean, I know I talk a lot of negativity and sort of aspects of that on certain shows, but I must add, it may be even a minority, but we need to pick on that. But hearing you, I am going to highlight the fact that it's really beautiful is actually the generosity of Muslims from another country to be so wonderful in their culture, which is quite natural and very welcoming. And you just thought that aside from your existential sort of like, wanting to know about philosophy and the world and understanding meaning and of purpose of life, that kind of really gave you a sense, because that wasn't the norm. And even up till today, I have to say, majority of Muslims, regardless of where they come from, we do have that in our sort of like characteristics to be very welcoming and to generous and inviting. And I guess those traits are so important because obviously it made a difference to your life. Sayed, as I was just talking, do you still find that these things are still existent in our communities? Because I know we're bringing up challenges, but I also think it's important to highlight that, like how important it is to continue, not just our new generation, next generation, how to maintain that sort of being inviting and generous to all kinds of people, regardless of their background and faith, no faith, because this is what actually makes a difference to us being sort of open to invitation in our sort of faith, in the reality of what it really means.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inviting others to Islam, not all others, inviting everyone to Islam is one of the obligations and responsibilities of a Muslim. And this is how the dawah teams are created. But if we look at the history of Islam, the way Prophet Muhammad and his companions and family members used to invite people towards Islam was the most excellent and proper way to do so. There is a hadith from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in which he says, invite people not with your tongue, invite them with your behavior, mixing with them and socializing with them, treating them properly. And if you look at the life of Prophet Muhammad himself, you would see that before declaring his prophethood to the people, he established his character in the society. He established that he was the trustworthy person. And when absolutely everybody was convinced that Muhammad is the most reliable person in the community and the society, then he did not invite them for a lecture or a speech or forceful da'wah or anything like that. He invited them for a meal at his house. And they came for a meal without anything. He immediately presented the meal and everything to them. And then he said, how long have you been, how long you have known me? And people said, yes, we have known you for many years. And he then asked, do you trust me? He said, yes, of course. And then he said, if I say that there is an enemy behind the mountains, would you believe me? They said, yes, you have never lied, you are a very reliable and trustworthy person, and of course we will believe you. Then he puts the right word in that time and says, then I invite you to believe in one God. So this is the way Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did. And especially when we are living in the non-Muslim world, we have this responsibility to be the messengers of Islam in these parts of the world. If Muslims were not behaving properly, the sister who is our guest tonight would not have become attracted to Islam. She explained in the beginning that how her sister and herself got attracted with the behavior of us. They didn't go to lengthy khutbahs and speeches and things like that. Basic, simple behavior of Muslims attracted her to Islam, and Alhamdulillah, mashallah, she is Muslim.
That makes sense. I really, really, enjoyed this introduction, because we do need to highlight that these things still do exist to a certain extent. But I have to add, now I'm going to come back to the challenging points straight with it. With that, saying, these are what the show is about, because we obviously want to only increase in our development. We want to increase in our growth, and we want to better ourselves. So we're not highlighting anything to disregard and sort of degrade anything, but there are issues that still do exist. And I remember you saying that you had this sort of experience via your sister, listening to her, because she was in another country, in a Muslim country. And I do find that, the people from their own countries living there, and, foreigners come in, they're very generous, they're very welcoming, they're very nice. But now Muslims living in the West and have settled for many years, and especially, we're here in the UK, you are based in the US, and especially in the US, with a lot of things that are said in the media about them, a sense of a fear or a misunderstanding about Muslims as a whole. But I think we sort of maybe have it slightly different here in England, or maybe slightly more in the US, as far as I can tell from what we hear. But talking to you from your experience, I know you told me something else. So would you like to explain that a little bit further, please?
Yeah. So
when it comes to race.
now we're up to the point where I became Muslim. So I ended up marrying a Muslim, and but not from West Africa, from Bangladesh. And then we had children. So after our first child, right? She was about 1. That's when I became Muslim. So then I entered the mosque, right? And so this is the place where, in the beginning, yes, it was very beautiful, and the sisters are welcoming, and oh, mashallah, you have a beautiful baby. But then it was like, where are you from, right? Because they want to know the category in which to treat you. And so then I start out by saying, well, my husband's from Bangladesh. Oh, but where are you from? I'm American, right? Where's your family background? And what I understood was they were trying to understand my tribe. And when they found out that I was Black, right? And even though my child's father is Bengali, right? I'm Black. This is already, I'm at the bottom of the pile as far as treatment, like which tribe gets treated the best. And then, in America, we have this thing where there's a power struggle between the Arabs and the Pakistanis. So that time, my particular mosque was ruled by the Pakistanis. So in particular, the subcontinent has issues with color. So the short story is, I actually encountered way more racism in the masjid than I did any place in America in my life. And it got worse as we had more children, because the great thing about me, having a diverse background, predominantly I'm Black, but of course there's like, in America, we're not purely anything, right? So our kids range in skin color. So my darker children suffered more than my lighter skinned children. And there's nothing more painful in the world than to deal with your children. It's one thing as an adult to deal with that racist struggle, but to have, your child in a HIFS program make a mistake and get beat and made more of an example of than the next child is very, very painful, and then it's like, how do you even, like, that's not even the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would teach Quran, right? You don't beat anyone into memorizing. It's like, how are they going to love the Quran? So, ultimately, I kept being very involved, and then we would, it's just a matter of changing which mosque you're in, but it doesn't matter, if you go to a Pakistani mosque, an Arab mosque, those are pretty much the choices here. We don't have like a revert mosque, so it's just it's pretty difficult to navigate. And in my case, as you saw, I was not coming in as a novice. So that's the other assumption, right? You're a revert. Oh, you don't even know Arabic. Oh, you don't know Quran. You don't know the etiquette, right? It's like, well, on some level, I kind of knew Arabic because my sister studied Arabic, right? And I kind of did know the culture because, my sister still was in touch with a lot of her Egyptian friends. And, even before I became Muslim. So, and then I had all the Muslim friends that I had in college. So, all the assumptions about me as a Black woman, about me as a revert, it's hard. And then, like I said, it even got more painful because now you've got your kids being mistreated, so, yeah.
Wow, I'm really, really sorry to hear that. The fact that you stand in front of us here on live TV in the UK, absolutely glowing. Inshallah, we only open up mindset. It takes someone as brave as yourself to share something like this and say it. I mean, some have been raised here from the fact of being a Black woman, a real woman, a mum, and now coming into Islam, living in the US and facing more racism in the mosques rather than outside. Now, I'm going to be obviously direct with this and just obviously highlight what you've just said. And as I have, this is still current and this is an ongoing problem. And yes, we can use examples of our faith, but it's not sinking in, even in today's day and age. What do we need to do? Say it.
Muslims claim they are Muslims, but this kind of racism does exist in Muslim countries and similarly in our mosques in the Western countries. So, and although things are changing a lot, I mean, compared to 40, 50 years ago, my father, my late father, he was a Maulana in Africa, in East Africa, and he learned the local language and started to preach and write the local Africans, Black Africans, to Islam. And the mosque he was serving in reacted to him, and he said, "Why are you doing this? Tomorrow they will want to eat in the same plate with us, in the same mosque, pray in the same mosque with us, and next they will be asking our daughters' hands in marriage or our sons' hand in marriage." So this is what my father tried to break, and gradually through many organizations he educated them. Alhamdulillah, now in East Africa we see there are thousands of mosques organized and run by the reverts and converts who have embraced Islam. So it takes a long time. I think in London, in Europe, in Western world, the biggest mistake that some communities do is open the mosques on the basis of racial background and restrict, or if they don't restrict, they behave with what do you call, even not only black. I mean, even a white person turns up into a Pakistani mosque or Iraqi mosque or Iranian mosque or Saudi mosque, they would look strangely at that person. Who is he? Why is he here? My stepchildren are very pale and European looking. They have had this experience in the mosque while they were sitting and listening to the lecture. Uh, Somebody came and told you, "Why are you here?" I said, "Why should I not be here?" Hey, but you're not Muslim. I said, "Well, haven't you seen a pale Muslim or Caucasian Muslim?" So they interrogated my own kids because they were in a Muslim environment. So, I mean, we have to change this attitude. And I think the responsibility goes on the ulama and the organizers of the mosques to establish their centers in a way that it becomes a multi-racial center. And I hope that in the future generation, which, I mean, like in UK, in America, I've lived in America as well, the third generation of Muslims who migrated to these countries, they all speak one language. So whether the child is African or Bengali or Pakistani or Saudi or Iranian or anywhere else from the Arab world, they all speak English, and the speeches are gradually changing into English. And the third generation of the migrants, don't have the same problem as they used to have before. One of my own daughter is married to an African, and she lives in Africa right now, and others are here.
That's amazing, and I really do feel honored, Sayed, for you to be sharing your personal story. It's not easy for anyone to do on live TV, and this is why we have the show, which is slightly different to anything we've ever had before. People that are vulnerable have come from vulnerability, even still going through it. It's really something that I want people to take away from this, because it's not a joke. It is happening every day. This is not entertainment. This is really serious. And I know it's probably not the majority of people that may be doing this or even faced with it, but the fact that it exists, it is a problem, because in our belief and faith, it is not acceptable. So that's why we want to take away this. And if we are going to move forward and be better in all areas of our lives, this is why we have to do things like this and speak about it openly, so that we can only reflect. We ourselves have to look in the mirror first. So that's really important. So Cordelia, as I was saying, was speaking, I was just wondering, because I know, you are a coach, you help so many people, you have really inspired me with the way in which you think. I just want to find out the things that you could sort of suggest, not just, from your personal experience, but how you help others with regards to your work and, being, in touch and in key with your emotions, so that maybe someone who's watching can have some sort of takeaway, not just about awareness of the challenges, but sometimes some of the things that you do in order to keep you sort of like in your ground, stable, steady, having that foundation and certain techniques that you have within yourself that maybe someone else can also use with regards to overcoming some of the challenges that you face?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the other way around, right? So I became Muslim, and I had some challenges, not directly related at first to becoming Muslim, but just health challenges. I had postpartum depression. And so that is what really led to me learning more about my deen and finding out within Islam, we already had the answer to my health problems, right? So the depression part can be solved partially. I know many people are familiar with the purification of the heart and those kind of practices. And a big part of overcoming depression is gratitude. And I thought that I was grateful, and I thought I knew what gratitude was. But, after actually studying, practicing, implementing, and embodying what gratitude is according to Islam, according to the actual, the practices of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that's when I really began to embody gratitude. And I understood that it's all these things are blessings, right? Every single perceived hardship. And, like broadly, we hear a lot of non-Muslims say that, your rejection is a protection, right? This is like the basis of gratitude. Allah actually gives you the gift of getting to know Him better, getting to what gratitude is, getting to understand the blessings of your breath, right? Because one of the major things that I had to do is be very present in my prayer. Like I studied the physiology of prayer, and just knowing that each position and each dua that I'm saying has meaning, and it's going straight up to the Most High, and it's actually healing me, and all the stuff that I was suffering the hours before that salah is falling off me, right? And so as I go into each position and I, go into sujood and ruku and all the things, it's like, as long as I'm paying attention to my breath and my pronunciation and being very deliberate, I'm actually having a conversation with my Creator, and He's purifying my heart, and He's making me understand the challenges of the previous hours, right? And I actually would look forward to the winter time, because Salah is like every 2 hours. I'm like, Alhamdulillah, now I'm going to be in a good mood, like a lot of people have seasonal affective disorder. I was like, this is about, and I would fast more in the winter because it's like, well, the days are shorter, and I had a lot of fasting to make up because I had a lot of children. So, mashallah, right? So all these things were actually helping me to understand the responsibility of being a human being, and the blessing of being a Muslim human being, and the additional blessing of being a mother to many children, mashallah. And all these things help me to even know that our emotions are a bridge between our spiritual self and our physical self. And that is like just the full embodiment of gratitude. And I hope that, someone is listening to this and they are having a new reception of those words, because we hear this a lot, probably in the khutbah on Friday. But I just hope that coming from like a normal person, that it lands differently, and it lands in your heart, and it helps you. So this practice of all these blessings that I was afforded every day for many, many years is what led me to helping people understand their emotions better. And just, I say face your darkest emotions to show up powerfully, but it's just like, it's who you are as a human being. Our emotions are a chemical that lasts for 90 seconds. Whether, it's we have a choice, right? They even say, the psychologists say, for every negative thought, you have to come up with 5 to 7 positive thoughts. Well, as Muslims, guess what? We have dua. How many dua can we say for like one bad thing that happens? Bad is relative, right? Is it bad? It's a thing that we don't like, really. So that's the facts, right? It's something we don't like, but we can just make say dua, reverse it, understand that there's no power except with Allah. That is a very powerful dua in itself, right? And I call it sweet talk.
To be honest, Cordelia, you're not just ordinary. If anything, talks like this, from being a life coach, understanding psychology and mind and human behavior, and even coming from challenge yourself and now healing and helping others, this is what it's about. And people are not even aware of that. And they need to not dismiss, things that they're not used to listening to. Because you honestly have inspired me. You've just, highlighted what I do, and also the fact that we do need to slow down. Even when you mention gratitude, that's so true. People say it so quickly, the fact that they forget it quickly as well. But the way you described it, it is absolutely inspiring. inspiring and rewarding. And I honestly think if anyone's going to take anything away from today, it's also myself, even though I'm in it as a coach as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. It really is important. And the way you actually went through that explanation as well. Like, honestly, we need inspirations like yourself and role models like yourself to share. And especially the fact that you connected it to our faith in such a simple way, because a lot of us don't even look at it like that. It takes so long to even understand what to mean and actually practically use it. And that's what some of our coaches, exceptional coaches, do, like yourself. Thank you for that. It was absolutely wonderful to hear you say that. I am sure lots of us are learning. And it's not about even the new Muslims or the reverts. You know, when we even come into Islam, we sometimes take things for granted a lot. And we even think that, you know, because we're born into it, we automatically get the gifts. No, we have to earn it as well. And we have to constantly learn. And we are kind of constant redevelopment and reprogram ourselves. And what I can say from the takeaway from what you've just said as well is the fact that our challenges help us develop and grow. And that's kind of the motto as well as what coaches use. Sayed, what is your thoughts on that? I'm not even going to ask you a question, to be honest. I'm just wanting to know what is your takeaway from what our lovely Cordelia has just said.
As a convert, I mean,
Sorry.
this is what our community is facing, and we have to be sincere and do our duties towards solving the problems and establishing the Ummah the way Prophet Muhammad ﷺ established in Medina. I mean, he gathered from all racial backgrounds. He asked them, and especially when he created the ukhuwa, I mean, the brotherhood, and asked everyone to recite the formula of being a brother to each other. And the idea of that was that whoever was standing next to you from whatever racial background, the person standing next to you becomes your responsible and you become his responsible. And some of the companions who were pretending to be Muslim and they were kind of hypocrites, one of them was standing next to Bilal. And when he noticed that he has to tie the knot of brotherhood with Bilal, he made faces. He said, "Look, what has become to us Arabs that this Muhammad, who claims to be a messenger, is asking me to tie a knot of brotherhood with African Bilal, who used to be my slave or others' slave in the community." So, unfortunately, this was the attitude. And Alhamdulillah, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ brought the teachings in a way that gradually got rid of all these problems in the society, because he was the most aware person of the psychological issues that he would have created by suddenly declaring everything or nationalizing everything the way communists do in the communist countries. So Prophet Muhammad did not go and suddenly say that from today everybody who owns a slave has suddenly lost them, because that would have created a rebellion against him. So what he did, he wanted to let the people digest this equalhood in their mind. And then when he introduced the system, Alhamdulillah, got rid of slavery and all those kind of practices that existed, Jahiliyyah practices that existed amongst the Muslims and especially the Arabs of that time. But what is going on now, unfortunately, some enemies of Islam are trying to provoke racism within Muslims and trying to divide and rule Muslims by provoking that kind of racism. For example, if you are a top scientist and you are a black or Asian Indian, Pakistani, you go to Saudi Arabia, you will get less salary. But if you are a Caucasian with the same degree, you will get probably double and triple amount of the salary. So this kind of racism exists in Muslim countries, and they have to also sort out these problems.
That's very true, and I understand that there are people that want to come from outside and maybe cause these kinds of, segregation and issues. But again, I always feel, especially in this day and age, women are even being empowered and speaking up. So then there are definitely men and women out there that have the intellect and also take the responsibility and accountability themselves in their own homes. It really starts from your unit in your household. And I always say this, I am not saying that we should not love our culture and traditions, but if it's actually causing more issues, especially against being more inviting the outside world, and it obviously does, even people, there's a fine line. And we're coming from an immigrant background, so we want to preserve, but it seems to be that they want to preserve more of being patriotic to the background and culture and country that they come from than even their faith. And that's where I feel there is a real issue. And I know that we're coming towards the end of the show, but we still got a bit of time, which I want to quickly ask you, Cordelia, because I remember even when we were speaking, it's like when you go into a Muslim household background, it's like as if, you're made to feel the foreigner, even in a Western country, because you are expected to take on their culture, their language, listen to their ways of being. And it is quite uncomfortable and not that inviting. So could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I have to say, I have struggled to try and pick up some of the languages, I mean, Arabic, of course, I know Arabic to read the Quran, but like colloquial Arabic, I don't know. So it is a challenge. And, I have to say, because I am married into a Southeast Asian family, then, the aunties and, they are not always, they're older, I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's almost like an assumption. It's just like, oh, you didn't have a real Bengali wedding, or, you have you even been to Bangladesh? These are not really close people to our family, but just like you said, it makes me feel like I'm the outsider, and even my kids are outsiders, and it's very uncomfortable, and as a mother, it's difficult. Like the older my kids got or have gotten, they have choices, right? They just don't go anymore, and so then the little ones are looking, they're like, well, if the big ones don't have to go, why do I have to go? It's just like, and then I have to like really scrape up like, what are those hadith? Why do we have to go? Because like it does say in the Quran, if you're being abused, right? Like, why year after year for Eid we have to go over these people's houses and get abused? You don't have to. You can make dua for them in your heart and just stay in your house or go someplace else. So yeah.
That's really, in a way, sad that we have to take those steps to sort of kind of take ourselves away from certain families only because they want to change their ways, and it's more about everybody else coming into their ways. That's why I guess this thing about marrying into your own culture, because they know themselves, they're not inviting to anyone outside. If it's friendship, fair enough, at arm's length, fine, but when it comes to family, apparently it's ideal to marry from your own culture and background. And if that's the attitude from people and the messages that are being, what about people that are coming into the religion? That means what, you exempt because you think you're better than somebody else? And if they're talking about relationships lasting, to be fair, it's nothing to do with the culture and background. And I am going to go into this in the topic as well, when it comes to marriages and having the morals and the etiquettes, the etiquette and, things like that. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's easy if we can cook the same food and speak the same language. But if that's what you think keeps a long-lasting marriage, then I'm sorry, there's problems, because people break up from whether it's the same background or not. and it's got nothing to do with the actual culture of two people coming in culture to keep that marriage going. It's about the characteristics and the morals and the belief system behind it. And I really, really want to urge people to listen to this, because what are you choosing? But I've had lots to say about this. I want to give you minutes, starting with you, Sayed, to kind of summarize what we need to take away from this conversation, because it's very, very sad to say, but unfortunately it needs to be said quite directly, as you have, Cordelia, shared, and our Sayyid himself. So what would be the takeaway for whoever's listening today, so that we can actually understand the impact of this, not just to the outsider, but even to our own selves? What do you think, Sayyid?
Muslims, first generation of converts, first generation of the migrants, they usually go through a very tough time. Then second generation and third generation, they become more stronger and more confident to establish themselves as a community. And I've traveled a lot from New Zealand to South Pole, so many different countries, and I've seen wherever the reverts and converts got on their own feet and established their own center and sent their own scholars to the Islamic seminaries and got them educated and came back. They are successful, and during the last 50 years, they have managed to grow up as a community. But wherever the converts and reverts only got married into other culture, and they did not bother to establish their own kind of community, they have kind of lost. They lost being English and lost being a proper
Yes.
Arab or Pakistani or Bengali or something else. So we need to work on this. And the best example, as I mentioned earlier, Prophet Muhammad himself is in this case, who tried to bring the different races together. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Holy Quran says he does not deny the difference of race. He says, I have created people in different tribes and races. And the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in different tribes and races, so that we mix with each other, we
So we
know
get to
each
know each
other,
other.
and we accept and acknowledge each other's differences and be there together as a ummah and community, and not to set borders and barriers that this mosque is Pakistani and this mosque is Iranian, this mosque is Arab and this mosque is Bengali. That is not right.
Thank you so much, Sayed. That was one of the quotes that even Cordelia shared with me herself. So yes, it's very touching, and it's actually a popular one. But I think a lot of people still brush past it because they still have their own egos and their own habits to change. And inshallah, we do that in time. We have a couple more minutes, Cordelia. I'd love to hear, more importantly, just your takeaway from this conversation, and more about you giving some awareness to people who are watching, so that they can actually make some changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's deep in our deen to, I mean, Islam was brought to all of humanity, like unlike all the other religions, right? Those were brought to certain set groups of people. Islam is for everyone. Therefore, we should be the example, right? The exemplary people in the world to show how all humans should treat humans as humans first, right? We're brothers and sisters in humanity, and that's it. That's really the whole story. And, whether or not you became Muslim through the delicious food, or, you became Muslim because you were, mashallah, born into a family, we all are humans. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience, and we need to appreciate and love and respect each other.
Beautiful. I mean, you are so inspiring. Thank you so much. I honestly feel honored not just by the Say It today, but most definitely by you as well, Cordelia. Your words, everything that came out was so inspirational. And I really hope that people do take a real interest in what Cordelia and our Say It has said today. It's been an absolute pleasure, an absolute honor. Thank you so much, both of you. Assalamu alaikum to you both. And thank you so much, dear viewers, for watching. And we're only here to give information and to all of us to learn and grow together. And inshallah, we have better keys, better communication, and much more invitations between us all. Thank you so much for watching. Inshallah, we will